Love and light, everybody. Love and light. So, I want to produce a little culmination to bring full circle the master thesis of what I'm trying to convey here. And I will try to be brief. Um, and I want to point out, so many times I find myself saying things in a very unemotional way or very detached. Uh, and uh, and so I set my opinion aside in so many ways to convey this information because I don't have time to convey my opinion, and I have to maintain a bit of a detached demeanor just to get through everything, to just stay concise and linear. Um, in a couple videos back, I said something about relating to the German people. And I just want to be sure to be clear that that is not to say that I condone, the Nazis or eugenics or war, even for that matter. I do not condone war, but I do condone um, a uh, a culture that has excelled beyond its peers. Um, and so, to a large degree, I see that America is in the position that Germany was in before all hell broke loose. And that's a very dangerous position to be in. And I do believe that a lot of it goes back to nihilism. And so, overall, what I want to convey in this series is the idea that it is very valuable to understand nihilism. That we do not, in our efforts to run away from the Catholic domineering paradigm, that we do not run into the arms of nihilism. Um, and I just want to put that forward as my disclaimer before I start this grand finale here. So, um, a few things that I just want to put forward. I really want to stress how Unum Sanctum was, to some degree, it was correct by putting the spiritual above the temporal. Uh, However, that concept has been over monopolized, has outlived its time, and has been there's much overreach in this dynamic of understanding the world. And so 9/11 was a turning point from this unum sanctum, spiritual over temporal, and now people have been triggered into a very staunch flipping of these dynamics, and the temporal realm is now dominating over the spiritual realm in a major way, and it is causing much destruction in the collective. Um, but I want to, back here with Unum Sanctum, I just want to point out one more time that the public, the masculine, the rising course of the analema here is underneath, is below the crossing mark. Tax day is underneath that cross mark. And the dropping, the descending path is above. So that is to say that the masculine is underneath the feminine in the expression of the analema in the two pillars on the X marks the spot. And Unum Sanctum expresses that in a very powerful way. However, the hubris of this dynamic is uh, is captured in the art of discovery that is used in ecclesiastic law to reveal your private side, your private income, and bring it into the public for taxation, for tithing. Um, and so ultimately, I believe that, and I am not saying 9/11 was a good thing. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying 9/11 was an unmaking of this tithing, of the discovery of the tax dynamics. And coming from a banker's perspective, from a person who worships filthy lucre, it is very beneficial to invert the nature of things and subvert the spiritual realms, to put the spiritual underneath the temporal. And so I said in my last video, I do believe that 9/11 was a spell to invoke war, to bring forward the men, the troops, send them out, send the masculine into the public to do war, to do battle, and to cause much harm to the nation at large. And one example of this is the fact that 9/11 was used to bring forward the Patriot Act. And there we have the paters, the fathers, the public, the masculine, were rioting. The Patriot Act. The fathers have been sent out into battle and made fools of, in fact. And at this point, the entire nation is quite vulnerable, as the temporal, the Trumporal, the words of Trump have made men into the villains, into the fools. And the spiritual side of what used to be a harmonic system, harmonic to the way things actually are, is being subjugated. And the spiritual is now below the hubristic masculine overreach. But I just want to point out that spiritual has the word spy ritual. And when the spiritual was the preeminent dynamic, we were able to see the value of rituals, of the magical systems at play. Religious observance was maintained, and concern for your soul was a real thing. And I believe at this point, because of this flip, because of nihilism, there is very little consideration for the soul. And so in that aspect, I do believe that 9/11 was an inversion, a flipping of the way things used to be for hundreds of years, and there will be an adjustment period. Now, that being said, I also believe that the man does belong in the public face. The male powers are the head of the household to a very large degree, and for a very good reason, especially in times of war. But it is very important that we do not undervalue the spiritual feminine aspects of consciousness. So I want to read a quick snippet from Unum Sanctum just to substantiate the fact that the spiritual was previously under Roman ecclesiastic law. The spiritual was preeminent over the temporal. And I highly recommend, I've said it before, say it again, please go read Unum Sanctum. It is highly valuable. It is the reason why we give our tithing and our taxation on April 15th at that crossing point of the Analima. So, this is paragraph 3 of Unum Sanctum, and it reads thusly. However, one sword ought to be subordinated to the other, and temporal authority. However, one sword ought to be subordinated to the other, and temporal authority subjected to spiritual power. For since the apostle said, there is no power except from God, and the things that are ordained of God. And that's Romans 13, 1 and 2. But they would not be ordained if one sword were not subordinated to the other, and if the inferior one, as it were not led upwards by the other. And so they are talking about the dynamic of the sword of Hephaestus, the sword of flame that is swinging in the heavens, articulating this analema. And on 9/11, I believe that this expression in the heavens was brought down to the earth, collapsed into the earth. And when you take heavenly shapes, like constellations or alignments, when you take them from the heavens above and you place them onto the ground below your feet, everything is inverted. It is flipped. This is Aleister Crowley's signature move. He loved to invert things, to flip them upside down and inside out. He took the pentagram and tipped it onto its nose. So many aspects of the 9/11 ritual have thelemic values and signs and symbols written all over them. You know, that 93, Flight 93. A lot of people already know this. I'm not telling you things you don't already know. So when you take the analema that has the spiritual on top and the temporal on the bottom, and you smash it into the ground, the spiritual becomes on the bottom, and the masculine, temporal, becomes on the top. And that is exactly what happened when those towers fell to the ground. The spiritual south tower fell to the ground first, and that was at 9:59 a.m. And exactly 29 minutes and 22 seconds later, the temporal tower fell on top of it, inverting the entire dynamics of this analema, this crossing point, and unmaking the very nature of the old paradigm expressed in unum sanctum. And the difference between, I mentioned this, 9:59 and 10:28 and 22 seconds, the difference is 29 minutes and 22 seconds. 29 is the orbital period of Saturn, and 22 is your master builder, Tav, T, master builder, Saturn. Anybody who knows about electric universe, Velikovsky, and Saturnian cosmology, you will understand that everything about the Twin Towers was a revelation of the death cult of Saturn. Many people are quite savvy to this fact already. So my point here is, to some degree, giving tithing, giving tax, and the ecclesiastic law of discovery needed to be undone. I am not saying 9/11 was a good thing. I am saying that this old way needed to be unmade. And however, that does not mean that we need to go to war and that we need to underappreciate the spiritual realm. So there is a give and a take between these two paradigms. And the collapsing of the two towers and inverting them in this nihilistic, thelemic, Saturnian death cult ritual is a very dangerous path. And it should be very helpful for people to keep their wits about them and keep their priorities straight and understand how this inversion has, and currently is impacting our consciousness in a major way. So what happens here is the value of spiritual mentalities actually becomes more valuable. It starts to become at a premium. And this masculine overreach, the materialism, actually loses value because it becomes more commonplace. So I just wanted to make this clear, how the two towers once were expressed in this form for hundreds of years, and Rome has used this dynamic to conquer nations and subject people and reveal their uh, their finances, drag their finances out into the public purview for a very long time. And I do believe that this flip is a banker's delight in that the private, putting the private down below, is a wonderful spell for it could be a boondoggle for cryptocurrency. And anybody who's into crypto, I think you understand what I'm saying. That putting the private in its in the household, in the hidden, in the obscured southern hemisphere, is could be a good thing if you know how to, spy the ritual and read the writing on the wall, if you will. All right, I'm done with that, folks. Much love, peace, and respect.